And she still has a crush on him. Trust me, this man, I mean, I can't just say he's an award-winning actor. Right now, he is an award-winning director. His debut, Living in Bondage, his debut project hits the box office, shattered it. Ladies and gentlemen, please, let's appreciate and welcome on stage our panelist, Ramsey Noah. You see what I'm saying? I'm just hearing the females alone. Welcome. All right. Joining us via Zoom, we have one of the brightest stars in the industry currently, and I particularly loved her role in Living in Bondage. I don't know about you, but when I watched her role, it was very natural. It was very organic. She's actually a rapper. She doubles as an actress. She's a presenter. She wears so many hats. Ladies and gentlemen, Muna Abi. She'll be joining us via Zoom. Well, let's appreciate her. I'm pretty sure she can see everything. Okay. Hello, Muna. All right, while we're waiting for Mona, joining Mona would be Jide Kenne, but I'll do the proper introduction. But of course, let's start with the legends we have in the house. Welcome, 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 welcome. So, Living in Bondage, the sequel. Remakes are very, very tricky. You know, it's either you get it or you don't get it. It's either it's a hit or it's a miss. So we're going to talk about all the elements of what makes a movie a blockbuster movie. But let's just start from the beginning. The idea, the conception, the story development, before we get into other aspects. So Mr. Gukas, I would really love you to tell us, how did you know that that particular story was going to, you know, eventually turn out to be a blockbuster, knowing fully well that it's very easy for people not to sort of appreciate remakes?
So, good evening, everyone. First, there's a very important part of the mix that is not here, and that's in the person of Charles Baleki of Play. And so really to answer the question of how this was identified and thought of as a possible movie that would be successful, I would have to hand over to Ramsey, because they started that journey first.
Okay.
To me. Yeah.
Okay. So Ramsey, take it over.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Uncle Steve. Wow. Hello, guys. Please just wave to me. I mean, I'm very thrilled to know that this place is full, and we broke all COVID protocol. But it's really good to be here. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Talking about how we gave birth, like Uncle Steve said, the better chunk of putting all this idea together is not here. His name is Charles Obaleke. We were hanging out at one of his lounge and having whiskey, and then he just said to me, like, Ramsey, you know, can we do a remake of Living in Bondage? And I'm like, you know, come to think of it, it's never happened in Nollywood. I'm like, that'll be a good turnaround, like the first time. I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? Not a remake, let's do a sequel. Because it's possible, because all these actors are still very much alive and they're there. It's like, oh, wow. And they said, okay, fine. He's ready. Knowing Charles for who he is a go-getter. Charles, like, he runs into things like a bull. So anytime he believes in something, he goes for it, he doesn't care. And he said, how do we get this? I said, we need the rights, we need to get the rights. So we had to get the right from the original producer. His name is Kenneth Neboe, the owner of Neck Films. Back then, this is like a great producer back then. He made all the big blockbusters at the time, you know. Living in Bondage at the time was one of them. So we called him over the phone that same night we were together and asked that we needed to see him to discuss details on getting the rights. And he said, well, I'm not in Lagos, neither am I in Abuja. I'm in my town. Where he said, no problem. We'll see you tomorrow. And this was me and Charles in Abuja drinking. And the next day, truly, we hop on the plane and got to his house in village. We did almost like 2 hours drive to his village, and we got the deal, came back with a deal, and then the story began. And then we started to like, okay, how do we put it together? How do we piece this together? It was very tough. Me and him had a bit of fallout. The writer wrote something, and I said, well, you know, what you have here is not like it's bad, but it's a standalone. You can shoot this without it connecting to the original. It's like a thin line between, you know, an original and like you want to do a sequel or a remake. There's a thin line to make it bad, to make it go wrong. Just a thin line. So I said, that story wouldn't work. And then every draft that the writer wrote, I kept complaining, and we fell out. It was like, no, you know, you want to burn my money out, the money I've spent to get this right. And I said, you know, we've not signed any contract, fine. I'm not going to get my hand involved in something if it doesn't turn out well. We agreed to this from the beginning. And he said, okay, well, to hell with you. Like, yeah, you too. And then we went separate ways. And after a while, he contacted Uncle Steve here. And then Uncle Steve came on board, and then he became the, you know...
The bridge.
The guy that cemented everything. Like, okay, Charles come, Ramsey come, you know, we can do this, we can do that, and pieced it all together. We started all over again, and we put the piece together. We got a couple of writers. One of the writers was here. What's his name? CJ Obasi. He also contributed. He was a contributing writer to it. Nicole.
Yeah. Nicole
was also the main writer. She was actually the main writer. And then we had to touch it. CJ was a very, you know, he's kind of like a dark writer. I hope he's not here. And then we wanted something that would give that thrill and that bit of horror to Living in Bondage, so we had to get him to piece some things together. Okay. Anyways, that's like the
amazing. So in essence, you stumbled upon it. I mean, the visionary is Charles.
Yes.
And then he had the vision. Mm-hmm. And so I'm asking you now as a director. Yeah.
Actually, the visionary is whiskey.
The visionary is whiskey. Okay. All thanks to whiskey.
You have another glass of whiskey.
So are you telling us that for us to get inspired, we should have a glass of whiskey? And so for those people that don't want to toe the line of having a sequel to an original film, or maybe they don't have access, you know, to having the rights of that particular original film, how do you think they can? What are the key pointers for them to identify that, you know what, this story is going to be a blockbuster? That's aside from a remake, because what you just described is, you know, Charles had the idea, aside from the sequel, pardon me, Charles had the idea and then, you know, collaborated with everybody, and then, because it's already a household name, it was a bit tricky, but at least to a certain extent, everybody was really expecting it, anticipating it. So for those people that don't have that access to, you know, buy rights to films that already are big names, but they want a blockbuster, what are the signs, what are the things they have to consider when they're looking at their story for it to become a blockbuster?
Uncle Steve, you want to answer that?
Okay. What is a blockbuster? You know, that's I suppose that's where you start from. And whilst there could be recipes for how you get to a blockbuster, I think that most films become blockbusters after the fact. You know, so really, like with anything else, it's about making sure that you have a story that would resonate with a lot of people, and something that can cut over different ages, you know, and work in different cultures. I think that that's where you start with first. So at the heart of everything is the story. And then once you've gotten this story, then you can begin to look at the ambitions of the project. And what are the ambitions that you have for a project? Do you want it to, where do you want it to play? How do you want it to travel? How many people do you want to see it? And then you begin to key into it, you know, different elements that would make for that. It could appear very easily that it was a given with Living in Bondage, but it really wasn't, because you had trapped into it elements that could make it work. But it was tricky. I remember that we spent a very long time just, oh dear, so sorry. We spent a long time just trying to find what is it that we can make or take to put in Living in Bondage that will make it resonate with today's audiences. And we had to do almost like impromptu research, to just basically say, quickly, 1992, if anybody got stupendously rich suddenly, what would you say was the source of the wealth? And immediately the answers were, well, he did rituals, right? Yeah. But then you come to 2018, actually 2017, because I came on and dragged the whole thing for another year plus, just trying to make sure that we got it right. Yeah. And so part of that research was, what is it that would make it resonate today? And so we're asking the same question. If someone got stupendously rich today, and you couldn't identify the source of the wealth, what would it be? What would you say? And people would say, oh, he's fronting for a politician.
Yo.
And then Yahoo came into the factor. And so we now began to look at how do we then play that in a way that would work in the same way that the original Living in Bondage worked. But understanding that that was the key to it, right? Yeah. Was necessary. And then looking at the original Living in Bondage, it worked at the time. What was missing in that Living in Bondage? And part of what was missing was the fact that if you looked at that Living in Bondage, they were acting rich. They were not rich. So we needed to bring the trappings of wealth into
Richard Williams.
Into this Living in Bondage.
Uncle Steve, you're yapping Nollywood. I don't like that. What do you mean?
No, but it's true, it's true. So when you look at a movie that you want to say consider as potentials for a blockbuster, the production values, the story world that you're dealing with become the elements that you're looking at. The ambitions for Living in Bondage, I think were achieved maybe about 60-70%. We're supposed to go to Monaco, we're supposed to film in different places, different kinds of things that couldn't happen. But usually,
why couldn't? I'm sorry to butt in. Why couldn't they happen? Because we want to get to the budgeting elements now.
Time and funds.
Okay.
Time and funds. Wouldn't let that happen. But the first is the story, then it's the production values, and then it's the scale of the movie in itself. Those I think are the fundamentals that you need to look at if you're thinking of something that needs to be at that scale.
All right, so we're going to talk about the production, how you hire, how you put the team together, what you're looking out for when you're getting the team. But let's quickly just go into casting. Jide, can you hear me? Jide? Okay, while they're sorting out that technical difficulty, I'd like to say that if you watch the sequel, you'd see that it was a perfect blend with, and please, I hope nobody takes offense, I'm just saying from the general perspective, old Nollywood and new Nollywood. So we're going to talk about that blend, how you're able to sort of merge the characters, the known faces, and the evolving faces or the emergent faces. While we're trying to sort that out, Ramsey, you're the director, so how did you cast?
You cast from the characters created. That's how I cast. I tend to look at somebody. Initially, I wanted someone who's actually very lean, because he's supposed to be like from a background of not just humble. Be humble and be well fed. Hungry, yes. Hungry, yes. So I needed someone lean and all of that. So when we called for audition and looked around, most of my Niger brothers they look well fed. So it was really hard to get the lean one. Now, when you look at Jide Kene, he's also well fed. I was like,
Now.
We're like, now, right?
Now. He has added a lot of weight. Like, I looked at his throwback pictures and I'm like, mm-mm.
Exactly. But so when we now did that and we couldn't find, because we just kept, we, okay. You can hear me. So when we auditioned like in like 3 different places in Nigeria. We auditioned in Lagos, Owerri, and Enugu. I actually got Jidekene in Enugu. So looking around, time was going. Steve was like, Ramsey, you got to make do with this, and no worries, we'll change the story. So we had to adapt the story slightly to fit the character. So instead of like an absolute slum that we wanted in the beginning, we had to make him like, okay, he's already working, he's a working class citizen, he has something going for him, and everything is well prepped a little to a certain extent. So that's how we created that character. But, like I said, we auditioned, both for the female and male character, the leads.
Okay, amazing. Let's talk about funding now. Half the time, there are lots of great stories out there, but filmmakers can't access funds to shoot their films. What are those things? I'm not saying you should be particular about how you got your funding, but if you can, if you're liberal enough to share that information with us, no problems. But what are the key things that an investor wants to hear? In terms of number projections, what exactly would an investor hear and he says, you know what, I'm going to put my money on this project and I'm going to do my best to make sure that, it gets to the standard quality, because it's a major issue.
Yeah, well, for my investor, Charles Opaleke, I don't think he was looking at numbers when we started this job. And that's the good thing about him. He's not the kind of guy who's saying that, okay, how much would this fetch me? Because when we got on board, we agreed, and I said to him, like, look, I will not do anything small scale. He said, do I look like a small scale guy to you? So he was going to go all out from the start. From the beginning, he was willing to go all out, not knowing if he's going to run at a loss or, he didn't care if it was going to run at a loss or gain for him. He just went headlong. And luckily also, when we got Uncle Steve on board, Uncle Steve, hey, that's like a Hollywood producer. He doesn't speak in Naira. When he came on board, Charles shook.
Uncle Steve.
He can tell you more about it.
Okay, Uncle Steve, since you are our investor, sir, what are those things you look out for before you put your money in the projects?
Okay, let me say that when Charles and it was Charles and Nonso that came to meet me, to say we would like for you to look at this and you want to be part of it in terms of coming on board to make it happen. And the budget, sorry? Oh, okay. So I'm sorry. The budget at the time, they were looking at, I think, about 60, 70 something million at the time. And my first thing was, the movie you want to remake, right? You want to do the sequel to it. Say yes. This is how I see it. This is where Nollywood started from.
Yeah.
We have to be able to use this to show how far Nollywood has come.
Yeah.
Right? And so that is not something that is going to be, to do with small money. And at the time when I finished looking at all of that, and then we reworked on the story, and part of the problem Ramsey had with the first set of drafts, I had the same problems. It was saying it was living in bondage, but it didn't have living in bondage. So we had to then create a bridge between the two, which is how Andy Okeke came back into it, which is how the Six happened, and you have the different people from the old living in bondage being brought forward. All of that meant that you're going to have to pay them huge money as well. And by the time we're done, very easily the budget had become 200 and something million. So Charles
Very easily.
Wow.
So Charles was like, okay, well, I had some money for this, but I don't have all of this money. So we had to then come up with, now, the thing as a producer to always do is to know what the appeal of your project is. Yeah. Because in that appeal lies the source for the funding of the project. You know, so for some projects, the drive might not necessarily be commercial, and therefore you would find that grants and funding bodies that would give you money for that kind of project would come.
Yes.
Some is a very commercial position, and you need to raise the money as a commercial exercise. In the case of living in bondage, that was what it was. It was a very commercial exercise, so we had to raise the money that way. So Charles had the initial seed funding, but we had to then pull investors on board. And we had to come up with a vehicle for the investors that said, listen, we know that investing in film is still tricky, but this is what we can do. We can guarantee you your first dollars earning, your first naira earning. Whatever money comes in, whatever you're investing goes out first. And when you get that out first, then you get this percentage of, you know, returns on the investment. So basically, you hedged their bets for them in a way that gives them confidence that no do. If it fails, their money is not going to be lost. And based on that, we're able to get a number of investors on board who were able then, you know, to pull in the funding that we required to add, you know, bridge the gap that we had. And then we had some sponsorship and product placement values as well that were, you know, brought into the film. So those are the different ways in which, but always it's about understanding what the vehicle is, what the possibilities are in terms of what you can offer investors. And I think that in today's world, those opportunities are wider. You can actually cash flow a project in the sense of showing the route from investment to profit now than you could 2017, 2018 when we did LIB, because now you can actually see the trajectory of movement. Number of cinemas has increased, streamers are plenty, so to speak, and you have the distributors that we have are also beginning to understand the function a lot more and are kicking down a bit more doors and getting more deals done. So you can actually show more now than ever before how you can recoup investments in the movie. So it's a bit easier to talk to funders.
Amazing. I think he deserves a round of applause. Fantastic. Jide, can you hear me now? Mona, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Oh, fantastic. All right. I think, Jide, you might have to check your device. I think your device is in bondage. So just try and check your device, all right?
Can you hear me? I can hear you all. Can you hear me?
Fantastic. All right. So real quick, I think I'm going to start with Mona since her network came on first. So Mona, that was your role as Jide's love in, why do I keep calling him Jide? Nnamdi's love interest. Yeah? It was amazing you depicted the character properly. Can you sort of tell us what went down? Because we hear stories about how, aside from the audition, like the training process was very rigorous. So how did you get from the point of having been selected to the role to delivering that top-notch performance?
Okay. Hello, everyone. And first of all, hello, Uncle Steve. Hello, Uncle Ramsey. Hi.
Who's your uncle?
Tani uncle.
You've been uncling me since someone should uncle you too.
I don't want to be Uncle Zone.
Take your time, Mona.
Oh, my Lord. Okay. First of all, this journey started for me as being in the right place at the right time. So I had gone to a restaurant to have a different meeting about a non-government organization, an NGO thing, right? And I was leaving and we came downstairs to say hello, and we noticed Ramsey, I would say uncle.
Better.
Ramsey, and we noticed that they were having an audition. So we just said hello and I left, right? So I got a call. I was already like halfway down the street, and then I got a call back, and my friend goes, hello. They're auditioning for Living in Bondage, and they want you to come and audition. Are you down? I'm like, say no more. So I turned around and I came back. And they gave me some scripts to read. I read them, and Ramsey was like, there's this certain something I'm looking for. So I read, and then and they asked me to come back. And that was it. So I kept praying. I was like, Heavenly Father, Lord Jesus, I know how much I love the first living in bondage. It was like the first thing that ever scared me. You know how you know, when you were a kid, before you go to the toilet, you have to like make sure someone goes with you. Yeah, it was because of living in bondage for me. So we went back after the auditions. They had called me back. I had to read some more. First of all, I'd like to say that Ramsey is amazing when it comes to what he wants. Like, he's a perfectionist, and I get that as an artist. Like, he knows exactly what he wants.
Thank
and
you. Say no more.
So yeah, he looked at me and he goes, "You need to lose some weight."
That's the part I was getting to.
I can do it. Right. So yeah, I had to go to the gym. I had to lose some weight. I don't think I lost as much as he wanted me to, but he was like, "Yeah, this will do." You know, I kept reading again. I read so many times, just to prove that I could do the job. And even with that, like, he would still like make sure that I got the exact emotion that he was looking for, and that was an amazing learning experience for me. And then in comes Jide. And when we met, I gotta be honest, there was no chemistry. So,
was there biology?
yeah. The chemistry came later. So we spent a little bit of time together, talking to each other and getting to know one another. And eventually it just kind of flowed. I think at the point where we were on the beach, yeah, that was the moment when everything just kind of sunk in.
Jide, are you there? You cannot freeze now, my brother. You are not Daddy Freeze. I think Jide is doing this deliberately. Well, Jide, I'm sure you can hear me. So just pick it up from the romance part, but really, we just really want to know what goes on the Blockbuster sets, the preparation, if you had to do 10 push-ups, if you had to take water, just because there are lots of aspiring actors out here, and they definitely would want to be involved in the Blockbuster project. So if the opportunity presents itself, what should they be prepared for?
Hello, everybody. Hi, Mona. Hi, Uncle Ramsey, Uncle Steve.
You too.
To be honest, I feel like... Well, I honestly feel like it's a lot of pressure trying to... Sorry, guys, the network is really bad. I'm traveling, so I had to stop on the main road just to finish this so that the network doesn't go off. So it's a lot of work, to be honest, especially emotionally, when you're presented with a role like Nnamdi's role, and you have to give 250% of whatever you have to be able to do the job, especially when you're working with two legends, Uncle Steve and Mr. Ramsey. It can't be easy. I remember the first day Andy Okeke walked into the set. I was upstairs just to meet him alone. It's a lot of pressure. The Kanayos, the Enyinawi ways, and so on and so forth. So I think what Muna is saying is very much in line. But I think, how as a guy, you're chasing a girl and she thinks that the time she falls is the time you have started impressing her. So maybe around the beach side is when she started, when it's in the time. I remember walking into the final audition I did before Uncle Steve, the first time I met Uncle Steve, and he gave the go-ahead and said him and Ramsey is an agreement for me to take up the role. I remember meeting Muna, and Uncle Steve took us outside and took pictures of us. And I was very skeptical about that picture he took, because I knew he was going to the forum, to say this is the guy. I'm like, are you sure my nose is not too big? Are you sure my eyes is not too big in this picture? I had so many questions, But I also remember the first time I met Ramsey in Enugu when he came to audition. I had to cover my hand in the blood of Jesus like 900 times and say, God, if I shake this man, let him not look anywhere else.
Now I know.
It's not the kind of
Now I know what
It's not the
happened.
kind of role just walking and take, you know. It's not a role just walking and take. So it was a lot, you know, a lot of bike. I had to use bike a lot to get to the location because the story is a lot. But I feel like I was also very sick throughout the entire time we filmed the movie Living in Bondage. Like very, very sick. Some days they would shut down production and I'll go to the hospital and take drip and then continue. You know, so
Took a
it
dip
was a
in
lot
our
of
budget.
pressure.
Oh, well.
Now we know why it's 200 million.
Why so fast?
It was a lot of pressure, but I thank God for people like Uncle Steve. You know, he would.
Yeah, he was playing the good cop for you. I was doing the bad cop. He was doing the good cop.
Ramsey was the bad cop. You know, and then a very great mention would be John Dems because I feel like I owe a lot of my performance to him because most times when the director goes back to the director's screen, it's just me and the DP, like right, and I'm losing my cool, and he's looking at me in the eye and telling me, "Calm down. I know you can do this." You know, he will reassure me many times that I'll be an award-winning actor, even when I had no clue what it meant to get an award.
And you finally got an A and BCA. All right, thank you, Jide. Our time is running fast, so I would like us to start prepping our questions. I'll open the floor very soon. Very, very soon. So let's start prepping our questions. Uncle Steve, you spoke briefly about the distribution plan. Because it's one thing to make a great film, it's another thing to get your money back. We know a couple of movies with high budgets, high production value. And at the end of the day, they don't even make the money back in the box office. Even with streamers buying their products, they still don't make their money back. So please, Uncle Steve, now I go talking for pitch, now beg we, they beg you. What is the secret? How can we make sure that if we invest 1 naira in our movie, we should be able to get 10 naira from your years of experience?
Look, there's no sure banker how you're going to do it and how you're going to get your money back. You can start off something and it's the toast of the moment, and by the time it's finally available to see, it's been overtaken by events. And you can start off something and it's nothing, but by the time it's coming to the people, it's resonating because of what's going on around. However, some fundamentals, and the very first one is story. Spend time on the story. Develop it, write it, rewrite it, work on it until you can fix every kink you can find. No story in the end is perfect, but push it as close to perfection as you can. Because if the story works, everything else is a given. If the story doesn't, so you can tell a good story badly and it will work. But you can't tell a bad story goodly and it works.
Goodly.
I have a degree, I can use any word I want.
You are rich too. No. It's just like the person that was trying to correct, is it Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk's tweets?
So what I mean by that is that, I don't know how many of you will remember this, but when we used to watch Indian and Chinese films, we don't understand anything they're saying, but we could follow the story. And it's the same thing. If you get the story right, you've gotten 70% of the thing done. The rest of it is Jara. So when you get the story right, then make sure the next thing is you get the talents right in terms of the actors that you're going to use for this. Let them be right for the story that you're telling. And when you've gotten that right, then make sure you get the production values right. Invest in quality. Tell the story well, finish it well, package it well. And if you do, we tend to look at returns as a quick fix, one spot thing. oh, it didn't do well in the cinema and that's the end of it. No. Because as you would find, the revenue streams for movies is exponentially increasing.
True.
So it might not do too well in the cinemas, but do very well at the streamers. It might not do too well at the streamers, but do very well in terrestrial TV or in other kinds of platforms that there are. But look at it as your recoupment journey. Look at it as a marathon, not a sprint. You know, but then also put a lot behind it in terms of just creating. Ultimately, if the film is well made and it's of very good quality, particularly if you invest in the technicals of it, make sure you get the sound right, and for us, Pius is sitting here, and what Pius has done, you know, so you get the sound right, you get the cinematography right, but then you also get the post-production right. When you invest in all of those things, what it means is that, so I like to say, future-proof your projects in such a way that it just doesn't die once it has gone out.
Yeah.
That it goes out and continues to have legs. You know, that it's still, I mean, Doctor, how many years now since 93 Days? 6, 7 years, we're still receiving checks from that project.
Uncle Steve.
But that's because it was made to travel.
Yeah.
So, but at the point when you're making it, you be constrained because you think you're spending money unnecessarily. But when later on acquisition people are looking, as they are looking for these stories, there's also benchmark technicals that they're looking for, and it needs to tick all of those boxes. So invest in making sure you get that right. And it doesn't necessarily, and we're talking blockbusters, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to do a blockbuster, then you have to do blockbuster finishing as well, which is you need to have a score, you need to have your audio post done right, your picture post done right, your finishing, and you have to be very aware of the different versions of it that you need to export.
Yeah.
But even if it was a small scale film, you know, just creative thinking in finishing. So your Foleys, your ADRs, you know, all of those little things. There's a reason why people would watch Hollywood and say that's a film, and then watch some Nollywood films and say that is Nollywood. It's in the little things.
True, and I did notice that there was a deliberate effort to bring in standard, especially during the scene where Richard Williams was, you know, with his fellow occultic members, and that dark matter had to come in, you know. So it was, I don't know, can you take us through that VFX journey? Because it was really nice. Do you agree with me?
Well, it's first is VFX, yes, but then it's also working with George Callis, who composed the score for that as well. And it's when you're spotting, you know, the different scenes that you've shot, and you're working out where the music needs to be. And Ramsey was very, you know, clued on that. And going back between Ramsey, myself, and George, you know, just making sure that these are the elements that we want highlighted. And Ramsey was very clear in terms of what it is that he needed to hear.
Yeah.
And getting George to understand all of that and deliver on that is also part of why I think that this movie would stand the test of time and would continue for a long time to be watched and referenced.
Thank you very much. All right, I know we have lots of questions, so we'll just take the questions now. All right, let's start from you, sir. So please introduce yourself, you ask your questions. So let's... Also, you have to direct your question to the particular person or persons.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, my name is Bright. My question is to Ramsey. Ramsey, I mean, the very first time I watched this film, trust me, I hadn't seen your work as a director. You know, we've always known you're a great actor. I'm very particular about your transition from being an actor to making such a strong film that can be referenced, not just because it's a blockbuster. Beyond being a blockbuster and financially strong, I mean, technically, this is strong, and it came from you. I mean, every day I watched that film, I always wanted to know, what was your transition process like, and how were you able to pull this?
Thank you very much, Bright. I think for me, it's been over the years. I didn't go into directing because I felt that I could direct. There were things that I considered very strongly, which is I hated the fact when it seems as if Nollywood couldn't go beyond a certain ceiling. Like this is the ceiling. This is where Nollywood is going to be. And every time I acted with some of the directors that I worked with, you know, you put in so much. By the time you watch what is done, you're not seeing your emotions. It's not properly captivated. And that used to hurt me as an actor. Because it was like I was giving in so much, but I'm not seeing it. And I felt like whenever I find myself behind the camera, I'll do whatever it takes to make sure that I change that. So that was a propelling factor for me. Thank you.
All right, I think the lady over there. Okay.
Yeah,
fantastic.
good afternoon, everybody. Evening, rather. My name is Kemi. I'm a filmmaker. So this goes to Mr. Steve. So I was going to ask, let's just say Living in Bondage was made for 100 naira. How much would you say you spent particularly on marketing, promotion, and all of that? Because I remember I made a film, and one of the reasons why I was a bit reluctant to go to the cinema was, you know, I heard that you have to spend this and that and so much on. So I just want to know, I just want to have an idea. Let's just say you made the film for 100 naira. How much did you spend on promotion? Thank you.
Okay. There is a I no get money answer to that. And there is a formulaic answer to that. Right? The formula is that you spend between 20 to 40% of your budget for publicity and promotions. That's the formula, right? But the I no get money version is to then see how you can creatively, right, try to come as close to that formula as possible. So how much money do you have? How much can you leverage on your actors and your actresses? How much can you leverage on, you know, goodwill in terms of media exposure? And then even after the fact, how can you work with brands that would allow you to leverage their assets in terms of how much outdoors they have that you can leverage and consider that as sponsorship? How many radio and TV spots they have that can allow you leverage to do that? And it's creatively mixing all of that to then get as much publicity as you can. And sometimes, as some movies have done, is ignite either a beef or some kind of thing, stunt, right? That helps you as well. So there's no specific, this is particularly in our climb, how much you must spend. I know that there's an ongoing thing with the distributors and producers vis-a-vis, you know, how much to spend, who's spending it, and how do you recoup that. And sometimes they'll tell you this is how much we think you need to spend. Fortunately for us, for LIB, Charles is a bit of a maverick, you know, and I think that you get a lot of promotion mileage out of just Charles being Charles, you know.
True.
And that worked for Living in Bondage, but there were actually definite spends in terms of publicity and promotion. I think we're looking at something in the realm of about 25, 30 million that was spent for promotions.
Okay, so we're
you said that when you don't have so much money to spend on promotion, you can leverage on your actors, leverage on
certain TV networks, basically leverage on other people. So how does one strike the balance between having to cast according to the way he or she wants to cast and looking for people with numbers? Because I think it's a conversation that is going on that some actors might not necessarily fit into a particular role, but because they have a lot of Instagram followers, you know, it's because of profits and just because they want the movie to sell, they now cast those actors. And then the actors that seem deserving, quote and unquote, based on who is perceiving the conversation, don't get the chance. So I'm just, maybe I'm wrong, but how does one strike the balance when you don't have that money for promotion?
Okay, so I'll give you two examples. So, how many followers do you have on Instagram?
Just a meal.
Good. At that time, he didn't have 1 million, right? He had some. But he had respect as an actor based on his performances and everything. I would not cast anybody because of Instagram. I would not. I would cast people because I know that he can deliver the role. But every actor that is worth his salt is respected in circles. So even if Ramsey had 15,000 followers, if you go with Ramsey to Inspiration FM and say to them, which show do you have? We want to talk about this. Before you even enter, the girls are fawning over him, right? And they will make all the necessary contacts for you to get the show that you want. So it's not necessarily sometimes what the person has in terms of followership, but in terms of just respect, fame, acclaim that you can leverage on. And I think that when you are collaborative with your actors, you know, that they can be tools for you to open doors in a way that if you are creative as well, that you can make it beneficial to both of you as well.
Okay. All right, let's have the third question. I think that lady over there. Oh, you want to ask the question? Please, that particular lady over there, she needs to ask the question later on. But let's hear your question, sir.
Hello. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dan Chrisebie. I'm a filmmaker, one of the producers of Amina on Netflix now. And I also have Amina right here next to me. Please stand up. Thank you. I have two questions. One straight to Ramsey, based on what you have just said. As an actor, I know we have a journey that you used to see things after they are made, things that you have worked, that you have actually put in so much and it doesn't come out right. Being where we are right now, would you say we have arrived? And then to my dear brother Steve, with the few works that we have now, a session just finished a few minutes ago, a few hours ago, and we'll talk about funding for Nollywood. And some are saying that you have to have 3 or 4 blockbusters before you can get access to funding. With what we have now, what would you say to the funders in Nigeria right now concerning supporting, those who have this creative ability to, contest with what we have globally? Thank you.
All right, the question is directed to me, Dan. In my opinion, in the creative world, there is no "we have arrived." Because as far as creativity is concerned, you reinvent as you go. So it's continuous, basically. Where we are today, yeah, we're a whole lot better compared to back then. I still find a bit of disconnect between the technicality and the creativity in my industry right now, today as we speak. A little bit of disconnect. So I see that the creative, which is the art part of filmmaking, is still not as deep as I want it to be, meaning that performances from the actors is not deeply rooted. Now we have good quality technicals going on, but it's almost like oil and water that's not mixing properly. That's where we are. So for the actors, this is for the actors basically. And I'm not going to share that with them that it's their fault. No, I think it's the filmmaker's fault. For whatever reason, if you can't get the best out of an actor, like a performance, an Oscar-winning performance from an actor, then the fault is not the actor, the fault is the director. Yes, it is. Because if you can't deliver as an actor, then the problem is the director that casted you. Yes.
That is taking responsibility.
Thank you.
Okay, so you're talking about...
One house, please. One house, please. One house, please. Thank you very much.
So the question is about what to say to funders and I'm assuming when you say funders, you're talking institutions. This might be a bit controversial, but I believe that we don't need funding money to make movies. We need infrastructure to enable us make movies. That's how I see it. So, if I was talking to funders, that's where I'd advise them to put the funding. Because when they put the funding in those places, as a producer, I can then cash flow productions on the basis of the fact that those infrastructure are in place, and I can use them to get back the money that I'm spending on the film.
All right, we're out of time, in as much as I was 10 minutes short, but we're out of time. However, we'll still take one more question, all right?
Can we do 4?
My guy at the top has not spoken. If they speak, I will extend.
All right. Hi. My name is Ruth Kwati. I'm an actor and... Short, okay. Okay, so my name is Ruth Kwati. I'm an actor and a filmmaker. I was going to ask this question, but Uncle Steve, I was going to say something from your last question. I think that comes from a point of privilege. If you're talking to people who have never had funding, and coming from a place where I come from, where we don't have people even looking at film as a source of income, that is Cameroon. They don't look at us as if we can, like nobody looks at us. We're drowned in the noise of Nigeria and South Africa, who are the biggest markets. So that comes from a point of privilege that we are not entitled to. The question I want to ask right now is, during the blockbusters you've been doing, what's going to take you to, what's going to make you look towards the countries like Cameroon and Senegal and those little countries, because we are good at getting actors to come there. Ramsey's there like almost every year. Jide is there at the moment, but as an actor, but not as a production body. So what's it going to take to make you look at us? Because I would say in terms of ratio, I think we kind of stand shoulder to shoulder with most of the other people. So what's it going to take to make you look at us as a valued entity and something you can actually invest in and get your money from?
I'd say the right story. If you came to me with a story that resonates in both Cameroon and Nigeria, or Cameroon and the rest of the world, something that gives me opportunity to create a project that is beyond just Cameroon, right? Yeah. Then that will be something that's interesting. I think we need to work together more. We are in the process of just finishing development work on a South African-Nigerian co-production, and so we're really open to all of that. But the opportunities have to be for projects that can travel, not projects that are limited to a geographical expression.
All right. I've just been told that we can take 3 more questions. I would also like to remind us that Jide, okay, not Jide, Mona is also online. So,
hello.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're Margaret here, music executive, content creator. Let me attempt to do basic arithmetic. 200 million naira budget for a movie, 160 million naira box office receipts, divided by 3, you're looking at maybe 65, 70 million naira to producer, because you have to do your split between your distributor and the theaters and all of that. So if you have 70 million in the bag, technically you have 130 million to get to break-even point. The blockbuster Living in Bondage, can it at this point be termed a commercial success, or are you still in debt?
Okay, so I'm assuming you're looking only at the cinema exhibition, right? Is that the end of the chain for the film?
No, I'm just at this moment.
So it's premature then, because I did say that it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. So the movie is still a commercial concern. It is still returning money.
I used the word break-even point.
We've gone past break-even point, but that's not just at the cinema.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a feedback one. Thank you very much, sir.
All right, so I'm going to take a written question. Right now, Living in Bondage made a huge success with the figures, return on investment. Would you say or agree that the influence of the producer slash director ensured this success? You didn't write who you were directing the question to, but director is director in the question, so I'm going to ask Mr. Ramsey.
By me again.
Living in Bondage made a huge success with the figures, in brackets ROI, return on investment. Would you say or agree that the influence of the producer slash director ensured this success?
So let me define our roles in filmmaking. So the director is just the creative arm of the filmmaking. But you see, the producer, he's the one in between the marketing and the creative. So producer has a more understanding of both sides, because you call it show business. Don't forget show business. So you have the show, then you have the business. So the show is like the creative. Okay, director, direct. And the producer is the one that usually piece all of these things together. Like even get a director, he looks at the script and says, "Oh, this is a fantastic script. I know the right director that will do this. The kind of director that directs this kind of genre of stories." So he calls them. I know the marketer that would market for me, or the distribution channel. I know. So they piece all of this together most times. So you give it to the producer, who can give you an insight, an in-depth knowledge. On the creative side, this differs amongst directors also, because directors come with different kind of genres that they are strong at. You have directors who are good with action movies, dramas, thrillers, horrors. You think about it. So for Living in Bondage, I wouldn't completely say that the director knew that it was going to be a success, but I think it's for the producer. Producer is the one that knows that, oh yeah, I know my selling point, I know what to sell. He's the one that will piece it together and say, yeah, let's do this, let's do that, blow some cars up, man. Let's fly some jet, man. That's what he did. He shoved me into the jet plane by all means. Anyways, that's how we know it.
Okay, just to add to that, is that I think what the question is saying is, did the role or did the particular director influence in any way the returns that the film got?
There was a follow-up question. If there were people with not so popular names, would the film still be successful?
Okay.
It was the follow-up question to this.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would say absolutely yes. Having Ramsey direct this was important to the success of the film. And even though it was his first feature, the fact that he was the one doing it was leveraged a lot in how the film was marketed and promoted. And that in itself ensured some kind of returns. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll just take one. Sorry, sir. Sorry, sir. We're out of time. Let's just take one more question.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Omobola. I am an actor and a producer. So the question goes to Mr. Steve. You talked about marketing for the films, and yes, you talked about the formula, 20%, 30%. I realized that it's possible that you spend that money and you still do not get the publicity that the film needs. So the question is, how do you as a producer know that we have done enough publicity for this film? What are you looking at? What are the pointers? Where are you supposed to be checking? What exactly is, okay, I think we're good?
I think what's key is understanding your target audience. And when you know who your target audience is, then you also then are able to know how they consume media, how they get information. And so for you to know that you are reaching them is first and foremost ensuring that you are on the platforms where they get their information, where they consume media. And when you are on those platforms, to ensure then that you're leveraging the reach of the platform to its maximum based on what you can afford, and looking at different ways to leverage that media as well. I can never say, well, there is oversaturation, but I don't think that we've had any film that has reached that point of oversaturation in terms of just how hard something's been marketed and pushed. So you could always use a little bit more. So I don't think I've ever gotten to the point where I felt, we've done enough. But in terms of segmentation and targeting, I get comfort knowing that we have segmented correctly, we've targeted rightly, and we've pushed as much as we can. But we can always do with some more.
All right, thank you so much.
And that's definitely from the story as well, because when we're writing the story, we consider the demography of the originals, the people who saw the original and the ones going to the cinemas right now. It was from creating the story, we had to say, okay, fine, the ones going to the cinema right now, how would this story appeal to them? Have they seen the original? And we factored all of that in, which was a marketing thinking right from writing the script already.
All right. I know we still have more questions, but we can't take it anymore. Sorry. We apologize. Mona, I know.
My love, you've been isolated. Sorry about that.
And she's been so patient.
Mona, let me ask you the question, since they wouldn't ask you.
Thank God.
Oh, yeah. So, why did you have a bad connection with Jide Keneo? I mean, why did you... Why wasn't it? Yeah, how did it? Yeah. What you said at the beach, right? Was it the sunset that gave you that feel? Like you felt mushy all of a sudden. Or the quad bike, yeah.
Okay, so here's what happened. When we first met, we hadn't connected, but we had to shoot regardless. So we hadn't had time to have a conversation and get to know each other in terms of like pain and trauma and things that people usually naturally connect with, right? So when we eventually got to that point where we had had a conversation, we had had several conversations. We had seen each other, and we knew like certain flaws that we both had, and we just felt, hey, this is my guy, right? So that's how it started. And at the beach, it was a moment to basically just let your hair down and just feel free. And I think that was the first kiss, I think, yeah. So
the first what? The first, please, can you emphasize that? Because I remember the way we auditioned her. Yeah, we were auditioning in the place, and she walked in, and I saw her. I'm like, and I said to Steve, I was like, that looks like Mona, natural hair, this daddy's little girl kind of look and everything. She came in there, looking very natural, no makeup, no nothing. I'm like, that's the character, that's what I'm looking for. And Steve said, call her then. And so, who has the number? Because she just walked into, and that's how we got her. But another quick question to you. What did living in bondage do for you? Like, has it helped you in any way, your career? Can you share?
She has blown.
Yes, living in bondage has done a lot for me. First things first, it did open a lot of doors for me in terms of acting. I've been getting roles back to back. It's now up to me to decide if I want to take them or not.
Oh, shit.
Somebody knows.
But another thing, though, this is something I feel like we need to also look into as Nollywood is typecasting characters, right? So because that was a romantic scene that I played in Living in Bondage, I tend to be getting a whole lot more romantic scenes. So
romantic is fine. It's not the sex scene, is it?
It's fine, but then that's the thing. So
don't redo that one.
Do sex scenes and things like that. I'm like, no. So I'm like, I'm sorry guys, I don't do sex scenes. I don't even do contact that much, but this is what it is. So if the story appeals to me and I see that there's a whole lot of passion and dedication into the story and the production, I'm all in. Because I learned a lot from Ramsey, I learned a lot from you about like details, the devil in details. You have to make sure that your passion is into it. You have to make sure that you give 110%. So that's what I'm about.
They don't know. That's the problem.
All right.
They don't know that there is the beast in you. They only think that you're romantic. I know the beast side, so our next job I'll bring out the beast in you.
All right.
Thank you, Mother.
Thank you very much. Please, let's not forget the conversation continues on all social media platforms at Afrif. You can re-watch this particular session on our YouTube channel, Afrif TV. So I'd like to say a big thank you to Muna. Jide, thank you in absentia. Yeah. Okay. 2 seconds. Oh, wow. We're almost done. All right. Immediately after this, we have a film that will be screening, Country Hat. Country Hat will now be screening on... Please, I think it's rude for us to leave before our guests, so I'll just plead with you, the next 10 seconds will be done with this session. So thank you very much, Munachi. Thank you, Jide Kene. Uncle Steve, I'm not calling you Uncle Steve because I'm my uncle. You must help me too. And of course, Ramsey Noah. My sister still has a crush on you. And she's married with 3 kids. It's a problem.
Mind the way you say those things, a problem. Don't want conflict.
Thank you so much for coming. Please, can we give our panelists a round of applause? And thank you to you guys for sitting put and enjoying our session. My name is Hero Daniels. God bless you.
The guy was just being funny. He knows he shouldn't have done that. Hey, how do I pass? How do you pass?